right, hello and welcome. This is the SA Cybersecurity series, the whiteboarding session, putting it all together. My name is Phil Glinski. I'm an SA based out of the Arizona office, and let's jump right into it. For the agenda, we're going to overview the customer scenario, a little information about their background. We're going to look at the attack scenario, as well as the siloed solution scenario, and the Palo Alto scenario. And lastly, we'll look at some pros and cons between a siloed approach versus a platform approach. For the customer overview, the name of this customer is Ironwood Capital Management. They're a financial vertical, medium size, about 1,000 employees here based in the US. HQ is here in Phoenix, Arizona, and their IT staff is small but mighty. They have a director, 2 network engineers, 2 server engineers, 3 on the help desk. For their security and infrastructure stack, they're looking at Cisco ASA, Catalyst switching, Meraki APs, Office 365, Okta for MFA, Teams, and Carbon Black for device security. Some of their future initiatives that we've talked about were SASE, not really ready for the SD-WAN portion, mostly starting and focusing on user access, as well as using less panes of glass. They definitely commented that they have a lot of different single panes of glass, and it's difficult to get a ticket in or serve an incident when you have 5 or 6 different things to look at. And they also are up for a lifecycle refresh on the ASAs. Some of the gaps that we found were obviously time and budget. Like most customers right now, they're doing more with less. Their security and network and operations teams are siloed, and that means that their tools are as well, meaning that they don't all look at the same tool that serve their purpose. So there's a lot of overlap and a lot of questions as to why they're spending money on that tool when it only serves one team. And the person who manages those tools, who is in charge of all those tools, doesn't log into any of them and use them. They're not part of the security, network, or operations team. So that provides a little bit of difficulty as well. For the siloed solution, this is the current state scenario. What we're looking at right now is Carbon Black again for the device security, the ASAs with no centralized management. They're not utilizing any sort of network detection and or response. So for Cisco, there's nothing like SNA. They are having some logging, but not everything feeds into it because everything is siloed. That requires a higher level of like customized automation, which is extremely costly and skill set requirement as well. So for the attack flow, they have remote users that access Clio, which is a internal web application. And Clio was unpatched, so there was a flaw there. And a attacker was able to exploit that vulnerability and gained initial foothold and was able to initiate some remote code execution. By doing that, the compromised server, they were able to create a new internet-facing website. And after that was set up, it seemed like it was trusted. So they were able to periodically pull and exfiltrate sensitive data. And since it flows out to the internet over HTTPS, it blended in with normal outbound traffic, even though in this instance, it was heading to a country where no data had previously gone before. Unfortunately, in these types of scenarios, there's no detection until a couple weeks after the fact when it was discovered by accident. And by that time, it was too little, too late. So what would have happened differently if we were looking at the Palo Alto platform scenario? Like how could we have stopped this? And I'm going to run through the same attack chain scenario, and then kind of make pauses along the way explaining. So in this unified system, we still have the same players. We have Clio, we have O365, Okta, and Clio. But this time we changed out the carbon black for Palo XDR. Cisco's were already going to be moving, so we said, well, why don't we look at Palo for the NGFWs? Decided to add Panorama for centralized management, and then we looked at bringing in feature sets like threat prevention, XSOAR, as well as Prisma Access and XSIAM. So in this same kind of scenario, we have our attacker back in action. And what would have happened before the exploitation could have occurred? Well, the NGFWs, the firewalls could have stopped the exploitation attempt via threat prevention and IPS. It detects and blocks exploit payloads targeting specifically on Clio's vulnerabilities. Prisma Cloud is tied into Clio. So using that, it could scan the application and flag any sort of vulnerability. We have during the exploitation attempt, if you know the IPS threat prevention and Prisma Cloud weren't stopping access, the next line of defense would be Wildfire. It would look at any unknown exploits, files, or scripts that were delivered by the attacker on these remote requests, and it could take those signatures to the firewall to block any sort of like repeated attempts. If that didn't work, then we also have XDR, which could look at anomalous processes launched from the Clio server and could even look at identifying suspicious outbound connections from that web server that they made in the original example. If the attacker was still able to gain a foothold, then we have XIM, which correlates exploitation detection from the firewall logs, any sort of endpoint anomalies from XDR, identity logins, and it could generate a high severity incident. And then XSOAR could have also helped with business continuity plans. It could auto trigger a playbook that would block the IP address of the attacker at the firewall, isolate the compromised Clio host, and it could even open up a ticket for incident response as the last part of the incident response there. As the last part of the playbook, excuse me. So what is the benefit of what is the downside of using disparate systems? And like this, you know, the Spider-Man meme, basically at each stage of the attack, any one of them can succeed because you do have siloed tools, and it's kind of this blame game, if you will. You have to go to this tool, and then that tool doesn't have all the information, so you have to go to this tool, and then everyone's just kind of blaming each other at the same point, and it's usually pretty ugly. It might be turns into witch hunts is when I've seen them live. So if we're disparate, then there's no sense of control or like a team effort, if you will. Slow finding the root cause and slow to respond. And usually in these scenarios, it's just more reactive. So the upside of that is that using a unified system with Palo, we're working together as a team. The platform closes the gaps. It can correlate data, detect behavior early. There's automation. In this instance, it was automating containment across endpoints, networks, and the cloud, and then also allows less panes of glass. And one thing that I definitely like to tell customers that it's one throat to choke. You can call up Palo for any reason during incidents, as sometimes you create a supportive ticket just in case if you miss anything. And you know, there's no like, oh, well, you're using, you know, this system and Palo doesn't support that. You know, in this instance, it's kind of nice to say that like, hey, we opened up a ticket with you. We need the answers, right? That's what we're paying you for. So, you know, it's not a end all be all decision for customers, but it definitely helps in some facets. So yeah, thank you for your time. Appreciate it, and have a great one.